before the last ice age. And the Columbus people are believed to be the ancestors of about 90% of the indigenous groups in North America. So they were a very widespread people. They've been found as far south as Columbus, New Mexico, so that is where they get their name from. But they weren't the most recent people to live in this area. The three main groups that would have called this lake home were the Stoney, the Tsuut'ina, and the Blackfoot. So they visited this area. They wouldn't have lived here permanently, but they would have used this valley to get across the Rockies from one side to the other, because we are one of the few valleys that runs from east to west in the Canadian Rockies. Most run from north to south, but because we're east to west, it makes it an easy way to traverse across the Rockies. But would anyone trust hunting a large animal with this spearhead here? Yeah? Pretty small. Yeah, it's pretty small and flimsy. This one here, by the way, in my hand, this is not the real one. We bought this one in the dollar store. We went cheap because the real ones cost $25,000 from parks, and they'll make you put it back anyway. So they take it very seriously. They do not allow you to take anything from the park. You have to leave everything where you found them. What they say is leave only footprints, take only pictures. But yeah, so these have to be placed back where they find them. Only the archaeologist can go in and examine them. But this is what they would have used for hunting, but not just on its own. They had a special technique. They would use these buffalo berries. So these buffalo berries can be found all over the park. So there is something special about them. They would grind them up into a jam, and they would spear them on the tip of the spearhead, and that would act as an anticoagulant, which means the animal would bleed out. Their blood would not be able to clot. It would only take about 2 of these spearheads to take down a buffalo. So that is where the buffalo berries get their name from. And even in that time, it would have been 30% larger than today. It was the age of megafauna, so the animals were much bigger than today. So when the European explorers came out here, they actually hunted the buffalo almost to extinction, because they knew that was the indigenous people's main source of food, and they wanted to basically get rid of the indigenous people. So they hunted the buffalo almost to extinction. But now, just over that ridge in front of us, on the other side there, is where they're starting to breed more buffalo herds. So hopefully, in a short while, we'll be able to see the buffalo herds roaming this area once again. Does anyone have any questions yet? Like, we have a smaller group, so I can cater it more to what you want to learn about, if that's what you want. But anything you want to know about the lake? Oh, okay. Let's continue here then. So I mentioned before about the Stoney, the Blackfoot, and the Tsuut'ina. So they called this area home when they signed it off to the government in the Treaty 7 agreement. So this is Treaty 7 land. They weren't really informed of what they were doing. They didn't have it in their culture to sign documents. So they signed this. They were told that it was to protect their land. Fortunately, what the catch that they weren't told about or weren't well informed of is that they were going to be forced off their land where they had been living for many generations, since time immemorial is what they say, so as far back as their history goes. So they are now scattered about. They live on reservations between here and Calgary. They live in more urban areas, so they still come up here and visit us and tell us a little bit about their history, their folklore, and their culture. So we do still like to recognize it as their home, and especially the Stoney people. We are in cooperation with them, so they tell us quite a bit about themselves, and they come up here to make sure we're accurately reporting what they tell us. But they would tell us a little bit about how they cook is one thing, so we'll see if I can get a demonstration going here. I have a piece of iron rock, a really small piece, and I have a piece of steel. So they would have used iron rock, and this is flint rock and iron rock to start a fire. I'll see if I can get one going. It's harder with this smaller rock, but we'll give it a demonstration. Won't waste too much time on it, because otherwise it'd be embarrassing, really. But one spark. That might not work with this smaller rock. Oh. Okay, I won't waste too much time. It's harder with the smaller rock there, but so we would use flint rock and iron rock to start the fires there. Now, when they started a fire, they would want to have something else with them. They would want to have these here. limestone rocks. They make up 90% of the rocks around our lake, but there is something special about them. They're very good at retaining heat. So you can put these over the fire in the morning. You can take them with you throughout the day, and later in the day when you want to boil some water to make tea or soup or whatever else you wanted, you would just have to take some water, pour it over the rocks, and you would boil the water instantly there. You can see that. So the water in that bowl is already boiling. And that's how they could make tea and soup or whatever else they wanted. So, I'm going to ask you